I'm here today with best-selling author Rob Jolles, and we're going to tell you all about what you need to know to create great online presentations. And this is the first video in our series all about your equipment. So Rob, what can you tell us about the webcams?
Yeah, well, that's a good place to start, because if we don't look good, we're not going to sound or good, and we're not going to be received well. So this is actually easier than it sounds. I think that Logitech seems to be just a very solid and sound player in the market. So there are different varieties of Logitech. Would you like me to go through those?
Sure. Why don't you tell us a couple? You could tell us a couple of your favorites, or maybe what to look for in general when you're picking a Logitech or any webcam.
Yeah, I can give you a number on a Logitech, but by the time this is out, it'll probably have shifted a little bit. So here's what I'd be looking for. The good news is we've got a price range of about $50 to about $130. And what you're going to see is really a difference in resolution and sometimes a difference in width. But I want to caution you where normally we get what we pay for. We want to get the best camera. In this particular case, that may not be true, because sometimes when you get a wider camera, for instance, now we have to watch the backdrop and make sure that we're not bleeding into other areas. A lot of us are in smaller rooms right now. We're up in attics, we're up in bedrooms. So width is not necessarily a great thing. Resolution, the same thing. Sometimes, I'll speak from experience, sometimes we don't have to see everything on someone's face. So a nice warm look will do just fine.
Awesome. So do you need 4K, or is 1080 or 720? Like what kind of sweet spot are you looking at there?
Yeah, again, I would stay probably right about in the middle. And I say that because, well, I just had a client, for instance, who was getting ready to go live, really upped the camera, and what happened was they got the higher resolution. With it, it threw off their lighting, it threw off their backdrop, it threw so many things off that we quickly unplugged, put the older one in. We were getting ready to go on a webinar in front of about 1,000 people and go with something safe and warm. So the good ones will be fine, but be prepared. You're going to need to spend some time to get that color, to get it all worked out. So again, I think mid-range is usually the way to go.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And one thing I found too, though, is that technology is always changing. Like you said, the models could be here today, they're gone tomorrow. When I picked a 1080 webcam years ago, it's not the same thing as a 1080 webcam today. The quality is so much better. So you don't have to break the bank. Get something that's good enough and roll with it. And then in a couple of years, you're probably going to get something else anyway. So great points there, Rob.
Good. And there's some other places where we can go break the bank, by the way. But on the camera, the good news is that's not the spot. I think we'll be fine with a nice mid-range camera. My camera is a couple years old, and it was top of the line, and now people kind of giggle when they see it.
That's right.
So let's go mid-range, and that way, if we do get some nice technology coming out, we can jump to that next move.
Awesome. All right, so Rob, that's great stuff on the webcam. So tell me a little about lights. What do we need to think about in order to get the right kind of lighting equipment? Yeah,
well, there's a budget move and a slightly higher end move. The budget move, you can just find a lot of $40, $50 solutions, which will help you out. We're looking for LED lights. But I'd be cautious about one thing, and that is, here, if we really start economizing and we go too low on the lights, we're going to lose the ability to get warmth in those lights, and I think that's important. So because we don't want to kind of blow ourselves away with just too much light. So I think you're going to be looking in, probably, if you go budget, probably the $50, $60 range. I wouldn't go below that. They're there. I wouldn't go below it. And then ring lights really are just very popular right now. Only caution I'd give you there is be careful if you're on Amazon or something and just looking at a picture of a ring light, because you might see a beautiful ring light. It'll come home and it'll be the size of a tennis ball. And so you've got to kind of look them over. We want to go a little bit bigger. I'm assuming most of us aren't going to be using our iPhones or our smartphones. And that's where the ring lights really began to set up. So we want something a little bit bigger, but now we're in about the $80 to $90 range. Mm-hmm. And then we can step it up. My only caution is, and these are harder to find, but we can get some nice flat panel lights, and we're looking at about $180 to $200. But I'd be looking for, some of them come with clamps that will go right on the desk. If you're not setting up like you're in a photography studio, but in a real office, you don't want too much clutter. you want to go with those clamps. So
Yeah.
Dasney, which was one of my go-to lights, are hard to find right now, but we're coming out with clamps, and I think almost on a weekly basis, supply, demand, they're starting to come up and kind of meet our criteria, but that's what I'd be looking for.
Yeah, that's some really great points there, Rob. And you know, I've actually got the Dasney lights that you recommended after we were doing some other recording stuff together. But you know, the thing that I really like about them is one, that they've got a remote control that you can adjust the brightness and you can adjust the temperature, so you can give yourself that warmth or you can give yourself that brightness or fit the room. And you know, they're $200 for the set that I got with a couple of stands built right into them. They're lightweight, they pack up in a little box, and that's a fantastic way to go. They also offer ring lights that have the same kind of adjustment. So those are fantastic things to look for. And one thing I really like about the panel lights is that they don't take up a lot of room. I was borrowing some lights actually when I first started recording my videos, and they had these giant umbrellas and they took up half my room. So the panel lights are a fantastic way to go. They're low temperature, they're long lasting, and they're inexpensive. So,
right. And you hit on a good piece there, which is a lot of lights, not just the Dasney, which we love, but a lot of the lights, when you start getting into that $180, $200 range, a lot of them are going to have remotes. And that's really helpful, because when you're standing there and you're looking at yourself on a webcam, and maybe you don't have 2 or 3 people working with you, we're all kind of alone in our homes right now, now you've got a remote and you can kind of adjust them and be looking into your camera at the same time. So if we can get the remote into those lights and limit the amount of space they're taking up, I already like them. And I love the fact you brought up temperature, because that's going to let us kind of give us a nice little tan. Just get a little more color to the skin. So I think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so great stuff. So let's talk about the trifecta, right? We've got a camera, we got some lights, we got to have that audio. So what do we need to look for in an audio setup, specifically microphones?
All right. And remember, they say audio is king. So we really want to get ourselves a nice audio. And that's what I mean in terms of, sure, we could use the laptop mic or something like that, but let's do this thing the right way. And if I were going to dig into that budget for one thing, I'd start with the audio. I really would. So one of my favorites is, and I'm not alone, is the whole Yeti line. There is a Yeti Mini for $99, and we can go up a little higher. Couple things I love about the Yeti real fast. One, you can run audio right out of your microphone, and that's just a nice piece, particularly for me. I do coaching, and I want to make it a little bit more of a private experience with my client and myself, so I can get those earbuds right into the ears off that mic. The second thing is they're USB. They run right through the USB, so we don't need a mixer. We don't need some other things that might intimidate people in a setup. So we've got a mic that gives us really good quality going right into our computer. And one more thing I like about the Yeti, and that is that there are settings so that you can direct the mic and the pickup right in front of your mouth, or if you're interviewing somebody, right in front of theirs. But most microphones give us this kind of sound, and now that we're in our homes, there might be a lawn being mowed, there might be a dog barking. Now we've got a little bit more control of where the sound's coming from, and I think that's what really brings Yeti to the top of the class.
Yeah, after we spoke actually before, I went out and bought a Yeti, and I use it for a lot of my online meetings, not just my presentations. And it's been really fantastic. So another option though is actually these lavalier mics. Now we're using Rode lavalier mics. The Rode lavalier mics actually I think have a little bit better sound than the Yeti. But you know, there's some drawbacks as well, because you have to clip them on your jacket. You have to have, we're using a wireless setup to transmit to our cameras, but if you're doing a presentation or something like that, you don't necessarily always want to have to get that thing out or have a wire attached. So that Yeti can be a fantastic idea. And I love what you have, which is that boom arm.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about those boom arms and what to look for if we're going to get one?
Yeah. So I can discourage everyone from what you just heard. Actually, if you don't have a boom arm, you're absolutely right. The Yeti can be a little bit tough because it's sitting in front of us, and it's a big mic. You're not going to hold it in your hand. But if you get that swing arm, and Rode, by the way, makes a really good one. We'll put a link on that one. If you get a swing arm and you're able to control and move, now if you're a teacher or a trainer and you want to get up, now up comes everything with you, and we can swing and move and get that really good sound. But if I didn't have that, I'd go this way, because now this is following us. I'm a professional speaker. I'm not going to be sitting in a chair. So I like I like that if I've got to move, but I've got a swing arm, so I've got it all taken care of. One last thing. Going to need, we'll put a link in, going to need a shock mount for the microphone and the swing arm, but all in on that, microphone, swing arm, shock mount, maybe about $225.
So real quick, what does that shock mount do?
Yeah, it keeps the mic from wiggling around, and it keeps it from picking up other noises and getting banged around a little bit. It's sort of suspended, if you will, and so it just allows it to kind of almost float through space freely. And again, if we're gonna really up our sound, we don't want the little distractions that a mic can make. Now, even if it isn't a Yeti, any mic that you get, I would recommend a shock mount, so that we don't get those little buzzes and bings.
Awesome. Yeah, and also think about the acoustics in the room. For instance, today we actually dropped a couple rugs on the floor just to get rid of some of that echo, because audio, like you said, is in fact king. We hope you got a lot out of these videos, and you should check out the other videos in our series. We're going to talk about how to present better, how to set up your equipment, and all sorts of other topics. If you want to get in touch with Rob or I, you can reach Rob on his website.
Jolles.com, it's pretty easy, JOLLES.com.
Awesome, and thanks for watching.